The Americas were about to go through some serious changes, as the Western Hemisphere was about to get new management. The expanse of the Atlantic Ocean left a buffer for America to grow and be cultivated by its indigenous peoples. With the advent of better oceanic navigation, Europe began to seep into the new fertile land. European colonization of the Americas originated as early as 10th century, when Norse seafarers explored and settled regions of the ocean front of contemporary Greenland and Canada. According to Norse legends, violent encounters with the native populace eventually made the Norse abandon those settlements. Widespread European colonization began in 1492, when a Spanish voyage commanded by Italian Christopher Columbus navigated west to find new trade routes to the Far East, but unintentionally found the Americas. European invasion, far-reaching exploration, immigration, and ethnic cleansing soon followed. Columbus's first two voyages in 1492 and 1493 reached the Bahamas and numerous Caribbean islands, comprising of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. In 1497, seafaring from Bristol on behalf of England, John Cabot landed on the North American shoreline. Ultimately, Spain was the first European power to settle and inhabit the largest region, from North America and the Caribbean to the southern tip of South America. Spanish cities were instituted as early as 1496, with Santo Domingo in today's Dominican Republic or San Juan, Puerto Rico in 1508. The city of St. Augustine, Florida, established by Spain in the 1565, is the oldest continually occupied European city in the contemporary United States. But Spain was not the only power in the New World. Other authorities, such as France, also established colonies in the Americas as well. They made a presence in eastern North America, a number of Caribbean islands, and small coastal parts of South America. There were also smaller countries like Portugal that colonized Brazil. This was the opening of an intense territorial growth for numerous European nations. Europe had been engrossed with in-house wars and was only gradually recuperating from the loss of people triggered by the bubonic plague. Ultimately, the complete Western Hemisphere came under the control of European management, leading to deep changes to its land, inhabitants, and plant animal life. Ultimately, European settlers were flooding into the New World for various reasons, but the underlying message was for power. Like most events in human history, colonization was driven by profit. Empires were a good source of revenue with the crops acquired and the gold discovered. A great example is the monopoly of mercantilism. Mercantilism was the simple strategy enacted by Britain on its own colonies from the 1660s. It meant that the government and traders centered in England became cronies with the aim of snowballing political influence and private riches, to the omission of other empires and even some merchants established in its own colonies. The Crown protected its London-based merchants and kept others out by trade barriers, regulations, and subsidies to domestic businesses in order to take full advantage of exports from and diminish importations to the realm. Britain had to contest smuggling, particularly by American merchants, some of whose undertakings, which involved direct trade with the French, Spanish, Dutch, and Portuguese, were categorized as such by the Navigation Acts. These acts were an oath of laws that limited the use of foreign shipping or trade between England and its colonies. Their aim was to force colonial expansion into lines and promising to England and to stop direct colonial trade with any other European country. It was, in all its intents and purposes, a pretty good racket. Mercantilism was to run trade surpluses so that gold and silver would pour into London. The government took its stake through duties and taxes, the rest going to merchants in Britain. The government expended much of its profits on an outstanding Royal Navy, which not only secured the British colonies, but endangered the colonies of the other kingdoms and occasionally seized them. The British Navy actually took New Amsterdam, or modern-day New York, in 1664. The colonies were captive markets for British industry, and the goal was to improve the motherland. This gathering of resources and redistribution of wealth to those who had already had wealth was a common theme during colonial America. Adversely, money was not the only factor for the flood of colonists. While some sought a new life in the New World, free to practice their own religions. The country of England also offers up a prime example in this department. The outlook of religious oppression by authorities of the Crown and the Church of England provoked a momentous number of colonization labors. People escaping persecution by King Charles I were accountable for settling most of New England, and the province of Maryland was established in part of it to be sanctuary for Roman Catholics. The religious persecution that drove pilgrims from Europe to the British North American colonies leapt from the belief held by Protestants and Catholics alike that equality of religion must occur in any given civilization. This principle rested on the conviction that there was one true religion, and that it was the responsibility of the civil authorities to enforce it, by force if needed, in the concern of redeeming the souls of all people. Dissenters could anticipate no clemency and might be executed as heretics. The dominance of the notion, condemned by Roger Williams, an English Protestant theologian, as enforced uniformity of religion, intended mainstream religious groups who controlled political power rebuke nonconformists in their midst. To some extent, Catholics oppressed Protestants, and others Protestants wronged Catholics, and still others, Catholics and Protestants, victimized unbending people of the same religion. Though England relinquished religious oppression in 1689, it persevered on the European continent. Spiritual harassment is often bloodstained and merciless, and is recalled and begrudged for years. The thought of new life free from the preordained social constructs was all the push some Europeans needed to make the trek across the ocean.